is that brain up here really the control center, or the microbiome and the enteric nervous system, the feeling gut, really the control center of our being? And this was shocking for me because I just didn't know this until much later, is that before we make that first molecule of cortisol, before we process something as stressful, we feel and then we think.
So, welcome everyone to our podcast, Sahaja Collective Podcast. Today we are super blessed to have our dear friend and really, I want to say wisdom guide with us, Trupti Gokani, who wrote this incredible book called The Stress Prescription. And I've just been reading it over the last few days, been so inspired. Welcome, Trupti. So happy that you're
Oh,
with us today.
so
Such a
grateful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, such a blessing for us. Maybe you can lean over and show everybody the title of your book. It's right behind you. It's such a
There
beautiful
it
cover.
is. These
Yeah,
colors were thought of, the higher chakras, and just the idea is, we think about prescriptions and we think about doctors and we think about, how do we take care of ourselves, our health, right? Physically and emotionally. And stress to me was a topic that was missing on the understanding of it in the doctor's office. And so
yeah.
this decision was made to focus on the stress RX and the solution, the prescription for stress.
I love it. I love it. And I mean, many, many, many different things touched me deeply from your book. One of the things that just I kind of knew it, but I didn't know that it was statistically true, was this thing about 60 to 90% of people that visit their primary care physician go there for something stress related. And it was,
Shocking.
yeah,
Shocking, right?
it was just like,
It's
to me, it's like, it's obvious, but also it's kind of not obvious. And until you
mhm,
actually see the number, when you see like to me when I saw the number, it was like, okay, Tripti's book is like the right
mhm.
time, the right topic, the right place for restoring health in its fullness. And that's one of the things also that you touch on in the book, which is very beautiful, is our definition of health maybe is not quite yet aligned. Um,
Yeah.
Maybe you could start with just a little bit about that. What brought you
Yeah.
that recognition?
Yeah, so that first, the fact that you had mentioned, I'd heard that back in my original training was in family practice. I did that for about a couple of years before I eventually trained in neurology. And I had learned about that. And I thought to myself, wow, if that many patients are coming in with stress related conditions, what are we doing to evaluate their burden of stress? And that was always something that lingered in my head because I knew that data point had come out and that was something that was being discussed. And yet here I was in my training and nobody was actually talking about stress. And so
Right.
part one was that. And then part two was as I journeyed through and learned about the healthcare system in the US, I actually spent some time in Spain between my first and second year of medical school. And I remember being somewhat of an arrogant Western doctor with my white coat and thinking that the Western system is better than any other system, right? And I went to the hospital there in, I was near Madrid and seeing these patients and we, get to the hospital and we'd always have a cup of cafe. I wasn't a coffee drinker, but I'm telling you that coffee was just incredible. And we'd sip on the coffee for an hour. Now, mind you, I got there, Deb does at 9 o'clock in the morning. This is someone who's used to being up at 6 a.m. and go, 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 go. And I
Right.
get there at 9 a.m. The doctors are socializing and chatting, and we're sipping on this coffee. And I'm thinking, what are we doing? I don't
When
have
does it
patience.
start?
When does this day begin? And so this is me and my mindset. And I was thinking, and at 10 o'clock, we'd start with our work. Saw some patients until about noon, and then lunchtime, right? Lunchtime. Of course, you take a break for lunch. I remember leaving waiting rooms full of patients and going and having this decadent lunch, 2 hour lunch. Sometimes wine was even served at lunch. I was thinking to myself, where am I? Where am I? This system is terrible. And then they'd say after lunch, you know what? Why don't you go take a siesta? Some of us are going to start again at 4 o'clock, but you're a medical student. You can actually take the rest of the day off. So I literally worked about 2 hours a day. And this was for the entire month I was there. And oftentimes they set us free on Thursdays to go travel. Okay, that was my month. So here I come back to the US, thinking to myself, wow, that system is something else. That system in Spain, I can't believe the way they just don't take care of their patients. They go and have their lunches and they don't even pay attention to the patients in the waiting room. And they take these long, long siestas in the afternoon. They come back later in the day. And here I am critiquing every bit of this, right? And then I got a little humbled. I looked at our healthcare system and looked at the WHO definition of not only health, but the rankings of how they ranked the nations and the top performers. And I think I was doing a paper and looking at not only how much we spent in the US, but how we ranked. So at that time, I was looking at the rankings and I realized very quickly that the US is ranked pretty poorly, ranked
Right.
37th in the world. 37th in the world. We're dead last in the
Right.
most economically successful nations. We're the last. And when it comes to the amount of spending, in 2020, we spent 4 trillion on healthcare. It
Right.
was about 2.8 trillion in 2012. We're going up to 6.28 trillion in 2028, from 4 to 6.28 if we don't change the system. Now, Spain, what's the ranking? When I looked at this data point, and I thought, oh, Spain has to be worse than the US because I witnessed it. I was there. I saw how little they, cared for those patients. I thought
Right.
to myself, ranked seventh
Right.
in the world. And
Right.
one of the main reasons, this is when it hit me, I wrote this in book number 1, The Mysterious Mind, is this idea of how they understood the sense of taking care of self and stress mitigation. And
Right.
they taught their patients, they taught themselves by simply walking away and saying, lunch is important. I'm going to sit down and have lunch. No
Yeah.
one was in crisis mode. There was nothing urgent. These were
Right.
follow up visits that,
Yeah.
routine.
Yeah.
They could wait till the next day. They taught their patients, my well being is most important. I'm going to sit down and have lunch. If I'm tired, I'm going to have a little bit of a nap. And then I'm going to come back and be so refreshed. I'm so focused on you that I'll take care of you. That is how the outcomes are so good. And I realized, wow, they were taking care of their own stress and
Right.
also teaching patients how to manage their well being by not
Right.
skipping lunch and not pushing through and not starting your day rushing and running, which is the US. So that was kind of a big eye opening for me. And then from there, kind of after book number 1, I said, there's more research in this area. And thus book 2 kind of came around.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Trupti, like I want to slow you down here for 1 minute and say Trupti just said 4 trillion, which is the US spending on healthcare per year. Like that word trillion just gets thrown around.
Really?
It's like you can't with your human mind wrap around what 4 trillion means, but 4 trillion is roughly the GDP of the country of India.
Yeah.
So it means the total amount of money that the government spends, the total amount of people that every individual in that country spend, plus the exports, add up to what the United States spends on healthcare. And India has 4 times the population of the United States. So
That's
it's like, you know, when you stop
mind.
and then you actually put those figures into place, it's like, whoa, like it's massively unsustainable.
Yes.
Especially when, like you said, you look at, those numbers just continue to climb, basically, right? Uh,
Continue to climb. Yeah. If we don't change the current model.
right, right. And that's what's so exciting about your book. And I feel like I want to just take a moment here and say, in my own life and in my own experience, I was very touched by this sage who wrote the book, The Autobiography of a Yogi, which was Yogananda. Yogananda had said that the best thing that would happen in the best possibility of what could happen in the world is a merging of East and West.
Hmm.
If you took the best characteristics of the East and the best characteristics of the West and you brought them somehow together, you would have something better than we've had so far. And
Hmm.
whenever I have the privilege to talk to you, I feel like of
Hmm.
any book that I've read in a long time, yours is the closest to that synthesis.
Oh, thank you for
I
saying
feel
that.
like it's so beautiful because you do come from actual science, like
Mm-hmm.
solid
Mm-hmm.
science, not kind of, like actually grounded science background. And
Mm-hmm.
the wisdom of and intelligence of Ayurveda and of yoga, and they're woven so beautifully in your
Mm-hmm.
book. It's just powerful to
Oh,
see
thank you. Thank you.
element of East and West coming together.
I thank you for saying, and to share, a lot of it came from me going into the Western model because I was a very Western-minded person when I started medical school. And then I struggled with sleep issues myself in my first year, which is what led me to Ayurveda. And I had just started to understand and appreciate what the Western model looked like. I didn't fully appreciate. I had a general sense, yet I knew something was missing because I'd seen that, first doctor when I tried to take care of my sleep issues. And the doctor I felt was missing. My entire being was focused on more the symptoms at hand, yet not understanding the system, but
Right.
focusing on the symptom. And then that led me down the path of studying Ayurveda and yoga. And then I started doing yoga in medical school because I hadn't practiced it before. And it was that path that literally saved me. And it filled in the void. And so when East meets West, and I'm so appreciative you said this, because there is beauty in the West. There's no question beauty
Yeah.
that we have in the West. Yet we want to be able to respect and honor the ancient teachings and know that there's a reason why they're ancient. They're 5,000 years old, these teachings, and they've been sustained all of these thousands of years, is for us to try to continue to implement them, even if our world keeps shifting and changing. How can we, right,
Yeah.
blend it all together?
Yeah.
And we can. And I believe we really can.
It's definitely, and I was also very touched in your book that your definition of health, and I hope I'm not misquoting you, but I feel like you took it as far as to say, if we just stay with the model of the physical body in its material essence only,
Yeah,
we'll never come into health. And
100%.
I just felt when I read it, I was like, oh, like that's what I've always felt. It's just
Mm-hmm.
stated a little bit more clearly
Mm-hmm.
here, and also by somebody who understands,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the balance of both. Um,
And that's thank you for saying that's the crux of it. It's the crux of it. It's understanding that we're not just physical beings that are to be evaluated. Our physical status, our examination, our lab results are physical. There's this emotional, there's this energetic, the subtle body that we talk about, right? That I believe is far more powerful oftentimes than the physical,
yeah,
right? And it's actually managing the physical. And
exactly.
that subtle energetic body to me is that the most important component, right, to our health and well-being.
Yeah.
And if that is balanced, then a physical will naturally become balanced. But the opposite doesn't work. Physical being
Right.
balanced, I could go to the gym and work out and lift weights and run marathons, but that does not make me healthy. And I think that is so shocking for most Western people. Is don't you? Oh, you're saying if I don't work out harder, I'm not going to be healthier. I've seen so many, one example of COVID time, so many athletes, really fit, physically fit as could be athletes, go down so hard with COVID.
Right.
Okay. And it had nothing to do with their physical fitness. It had to do with everything else about them was not healthy. And
Right.
that's the piece that we take care of, right? In our more Eastern practices.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's completely skipped in the Western. In that
Definitely.
7-minute visit in the Western office. It just,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah. And in a weird way, it's like I feel like from the yogic standpoint, what you said is so beautiful in the sense that I think we often think that we're a physical body that has a soul. And
mhm,
it's like, no, we're a soul that has a physical body. And
mhm.
everything that's more subtle than the physical has more influence than the physical. So it's like, if you catch something at the level of energy, it doesn't really have a chance to manifest in the physical. But if you wait until it's fully manifested in the physical, it's very hard to reverse. And
Absolutely.
that's also something that I feel like you touch on in your book. But maybe what we can jump into is, I mean, we were talking earlier about this synthesis of East and West, and I
Mhm,
feel like
mhm,
one of the things that I love about your book is that you have a very clear way of explaining the science in a way that's not overwhelming.
Mm.
Even and I feel like I'm more scientific than most yogis. Sometimes when I read the
Mhm.
science, I'm like, doesn't like 100% land.
Right, right.
Um, but I felt like when I was reading your book, it does land. It's like it's a very well presented, digestible form of this of science, which is of course probably incredibly more complicated. And I think you might do
Mhm.
much better if there was
Yeah,
like something that you felt from
yeah.
that model that's helpful
Mhm,
to people in terms of understanding their health. What do you
mhm,
think is the most helpful
mhm.
aspect of that model?
So when you think about, this idea of taking this scientific work and creating kind of a dialogue around it and using the spirituality aspect, I'll just touch on Ayurveda for a moment because I want to kind of come into this as if like someone really has never experienced uh, this ancient wisdom. And how do you come from like a Western being
Right.
and jump into this just this world of woo woo, right? We'll call it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
How do you step into that? And that's actually where I was, right? I was a first year medical student, incredibly Western, kickboxing, drinking coffee, staying up late. That was me, right?
Right.
Grew up in Chicago. And suddenly I'm having the struggle with sleep. And I started reading these books on mind body medicine, came across Eastern literature. And how did it even make sense to me? What was amazing about it was that when you look at ancient wisdom and you look at the Western thinking, you'll see that the fight or flight response, the stress response system, it's very very much clinically understood. We understand there's a sympathetic nervous system, there's a parasympathetic nervous system. We know all what it's like to feel cortisol and on. That's very tangible to the Western audience. Parasympathetic, rest and digest and relax, right? And we kind of understand this physiology, neurologically and physically, what happens. Well, then let's talk about Ayurveda a little bit. How does that fit into this sympathetic drive and stress response system? What Ayurveda says is that, hey, listen, we're all born in a state. Every living thing has these five elements, right? Air, space, fire, earth, and water. And when you're born, you could be one of these more movement kind of people, moving, going, doing, right? The Vata types, always talking, always moving, always like on the go, loves to be invited to lots of things, loves to be social, have lots of parties, very active, musical, creative. Like that's me. Vatas, the Pittas, competitive, driven, muscular, kind of the one that can see what needs to be done, organizing things, great person to kind of run something and manage. The Kaphas, bigger structure, bigger bone, kind of relaxed, chill, like you manage it, I'll hang out, likes the one on one conversations. And what happens is you start to understand very simply that you're born kind of into like a personality or a state, right? The thing that's interesting is we don't know this. This is where the Western living pulls us out of alignment. We don't know that we're born into one of these types of natures as our dominant, and we're supposed to live kind of in accordance to that being.
Right.
So if I'm like the Vata person, if I decide to become an accountant
Right.
and study numbers and sit behind a cubicle and sit there all day, I'm gonna go bonkers. Bonkers, right? And so we want to try to relate this concept of like the Western interpretation to this Eastern wisdom and say, well, once I mismatch my state and my choice of life, if I'm a Vata person, excitable person, and drink lots of cold water, have lots of cold food, I skip my meals. I'm going to get more excitable. I may start talking faster, moving faster, start getting neck tightness, constipation. That pushes me into sympathetic drive state.
Right.
So all it is when you start to understand your energy, understand the essence of our physical is our energetic body, then you start to say, well, why am I in this fight or flight state? Why am I fight, flight, or freeze? What's going on? Freeze, neck is tight, body can kind of becomes smaller, colon kind of shrinks up a little bit. That's the vata. My head is spinning. I'm worried. I go into a freeze state. I become smaller and try to hide from the perceived danger. So what I started realizing is that the Western model talking about stress and discussing how there's a sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system and very like intellectual in medical school discussing this. I was looking at my patients and saying, look at this person's posture. They're always like hunched over. They're always sitting at the edge of the desk. They're always like tapping their foot. They're always talking really fast. And this is what the ancient sages 5,000 years ago did. Is they just looked at someone and said, Oh gosh, you're so excitable and windy. Have some warm tea. Sit back, relax, take a moment and breathe. Let's breathe together. Let's connect.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
from as scientific as it is, it's very practical too.
yeah.
And the beauty of Ayurveda is it's this kind of beautiful interplay. I don't even know if I answered your question, but I wanted to share all that because that to me was like how I jumped into it. Because here I was, this lost insomniac, couldn't figure out why I couldn't sleep. Saw the psychiatrist who gave me Prozac. I was like, I don't want Prozac, I'm not depressed. But what I started doing is reading these books, and those books made so much sense to me. I was
Right.
checking off every single thing, saying, wow. And then it became clear what stress really is. It's a disconnect from that baseline. So the second book is really all about like how do we get stuck in that state? Okay,
Yeah.
fine. So let's say I'm vata excitable. Why do I stay there? Why do I continue to stay there? Even if I'm changing my foods and changing my diets and doing some yoga, why do I continue to stay in that state? And that's where things go a little bit deeper, but that's the bigger picture. And so
Uh,
that answered your question. That's how I approach it, you know?
it's a very beautiful thing that you just bring up, which is, and I think your new book touches on it as well about that, you're born in your natural state, like you're born in your
Yes.
state of health, you're born in your state of well-being. And this is kind of a slightly different movement, slightly different question, but
Yeah.
so in the Western world, um, you're born in health.
Mhm.
And yet, already children in the United States, 60% are medicated. 60. It's like, so I agree that we're born in baseline, but I'm wondering if you have any insights or
Yeah,
thoughts.
on that. Yeah.
Like,
Well,
how is it that we're coming out so fast? Like,
yeah.
is that
Yeah.
just, I mean, maybe some of that is sociological, or like you said in your book, you have this beautiful thing about intergenerational trauma, which
Yeah.
I feel like is definitely something worth discussing. But I'm wondering if you have any insights, like why
Yeah.
coming out so fast?
So first thing I will mention toxins because it's important to mention toxins, but the umbilical cord
Yeah,
carries such a high amount of toxins. So you can actually measure that at birth that immediately the fetus coming out of the womb is already in a toxic kind of unfortunate environment and has toxins within their circulatory system. So number one, that idea of we're born in this harmonious state from thousands of years ago, we now are much more toxic in our environments. That's just
yeah,
the unfortunate truth, right? So that's piece one that may throw our system off is just
right,
that is a physical toxic creating an energetic imbalance.
sure,
Second piece of it is the idea that, and actually I'd say three things. Second piece is what you mentioned, which is so important. I can think about this with my kids. This whole idea of intergenerational trauma, this idea of mom's experience of during the time of pregnancy, how was she living her life?
right,
Was mom stressed? Was mom depressed? Was mom having challenges in any form? Some women have hyperemesis gravidarum. They're vomiting. They're not able to maintain a diet that's healthy.
right,
Things happen in that time of gestation that is going to impact that energetic well-being of the baby coming, the fetus and the newborn. Then let's add that C-section is being performed.
right,
When C-sections are performed, when the baby doesn't pass through the vaginal birth canal, we don't have the inoculation of mom's vaginal microbiota that helps
right,
seed, right, the gut. So the very first 2 months of life, the baby is not
yeah.
protected with the seeding of the microbiome. So we're already kind of seeing all these things that are happening because our Western intervention of C-sections, because of toxins, right?
And
Because of
like you just mentioned briefly, like, okay, what about the stress of the mom? It's like, well, probably the mom has a month of the 9 months where she's not working in a
if
stressful,
if that,
like, you
yeah,
know, it's
yeah,
kind of like to then expect that,
yeah.
she's really relaxed and everything's fine. It's a bit unrealistic.
And let's really talk about what women do when they're pregnant. I've seen some women run marathons when they're pregnant. I've seen women that don't stop working until the last day before they're pregnant. And we're not supposed to do that. I'm just gonna say it. We're not supposed to do that.
Yeah,
Pregnancy is a time of you are creating a child.
yeah,
You this is and I'm saying this coming from someone who's the chief resident carrying a 24/7 pager with my second child. I'm saying this because I've learned this the hard way. You
Yeah.
know, when you push and push and push during pregnancy, that adrenal function, your cortisol, you need there's numbers of like 400 times the amount of progesterone to create a newborn. Of these numbers, there's some data on how much hormone production you need to create a baby. And that fetal development time, if you're using your progesterone to make cortisol, because that's what happens, progesterone converts to cortisol, the stress hormone.
Right.
If I'm going to be on all the time, working out excessively, working a job intensely, like me, carrying a pager on call, well, there goes the hormones that are going to be used for the baby's development, and they're
Right.
being sacrificed for adrenal stress and to maintain my cortisol levels. And so there's so much on this topic, but that's another piece of it too, is that women really, we all should be taking the time to nourish and relax and recover and reset during that time. Yes, working is something that I'm a big fan of because I've worked all my life, though I think it's important to be mindful of how we work, of what we allow ourselves. I still remember an attending getting upset with me. I'll remember this. I remember this is like a very, and he was upset with me because I wanted to sit down. Because
Right.
again, I was chief resident, I was running the floor, we were in the ICU, I was presenting cases, and I just wanted to sit. I mean, God forbid, I was up for hours with this. I was pretty close to delivery time. And I said, I want to sit and I'll meet you guys over there. Or can we do the round sitting? And he got so upset with me. He said,
Right.
You're the chief resident. We need to walk. We need to visit each patient. Come on, let's go. Buck it up. Buck it up. Let's go,
Right.
buttercup.
And
Like that was kind of the mindset.
I feel like it relates very much to the topic of stress, right? It's like when is
Yeah.
the time that you're allowed to just be and rest? There was a woman a long time ago on our calls who she had more vacation than most women, and I think after giving birth, maybe 2 months after, her work called her in. There was something that they just couldn't do without her. So she goes into and she's telling this story, completely sheepishly, like, so I went into work and I thought, I'm just gonna lie down underneath my table just for a minute.
Oh,
Like, I'm not gonna fall asleep. I'm just gonna lie down and I'm just gonna take a
oh.
little rest and then I'm gonna get back up and continue. So of course she lies down underneath the table. She falls, pass out, fully asleep.
Pass out.
Her coworkers find her asleep underneath the table.
God
And
bless.
and she's telling the story like she did something wrong. And I'm feeling like you didn't do anything wrong at all.
No.
You shouldn't
Yeah.
be there.
Right. You should not be there. And you should be allowed to take a day off. Right. It's like
It's
we get
okay.
shamed and
Right,
punished for self-care. But a lot of it, Devas, is we beat ourselves up first. And
right.
I'm going to encourage everyone to give yourself some self-love. Give
Yeah,
yourself the ability to say no, be strong with your boundaries. And I tell you, it's a difficult thing. Even to this day, I have a hard time with my boundaries because of the resistance I get from others. I was just at a graduation on Friday night, and I remember I was going to stop by for an hour. I had a busy week. I was just as I mentioned, it's very hot in Chicago right now. So I just wanted to go for an hour and come back home and rest. And I had this one woman there saying, Come, let's go here after the graduation and have a cocktail and then do this and do this. And I said to her three different times, I am going home. I know it's early. And she kept saying, What is wrong? Why are you going home? Why do you? And so you get social pressure and you get this, it's incredible. And so from the attending to friends, I'm always just having to do that. And it is tough. But you know what? People respect you when you set your boundaries. I feel like I get more respect now than ever before because people know I'm not going to just say yes to anything. And when
right.
I want to go home, I'm going to go home. When I
Yeah,
want to say, and I choose wisely. And so for everyone here to manage, and a lot of this is why do we go out of state and stay there? And, one of the things I do want to kind of touch on is this idea of trauma and how trauma affects us. Because again, when we're born, when we're carrying energy of trauma from past generations, that can throw off the state. So this idea of being born in this balanced state, it's more what I look at it is being born and understanding what is the lead dosha. And as you live life, which one is the most right? Which
right,
one is your lead? And then I often go backwards and say which ones are pulling you out of that alignment.
right,
Is it my vata energy that's putting fire blowing on the fire and increasing my fiery, irritable energy? Or is it my fire energy that's too high, that's imbalancing my kapha? So kind of the first step is just getting a sense of like I'm stuck. And then the next step is saying, what is it that caused this? And then one more thing about the young adults and the kids and why we think there's so many medicated. I really truly believe we are not allowing kids to be kids. We're just
Def-
not. We're not allowing them to be kids. We
Definitely.
are, as parents, we are most at fault for creating a path for them. And I've worked really hard. I have a 20-year-old and a 22-year-old to get out of the way, realizing they know their truth. My
Right.
son at age 10, my daughter at age that same kind of, they knew their truth.
Yep.
Feel Serena, she knows her truth. You step out of the way and let them go. And the most important thing as a parent is keep them safe, make sure you take care of them, feed them, of course, financially take care of them. They really understand themselves more than we do. And I
Yeah.
think we as parents get in the way of that. And that's what creates the imbalance. And then we want to medicate them. Or we
Yep.
think it's okay to medicate them because they're not aligning to what we believe is the way their path should be. And that to me is the biggest injustice is what we're doing to our kids.
It's completely true, and I also feel like in a weird way we don't respect the space of being a child anymore. Like we used to
Right.
kind of like really protect children and care for them in a different way than you care for an adult. And
Right.
we we raised Serena in a school where there's basically no kind of like hard education until first grade. Like kindergarten is just play.
Yeah.
And as we were like, because we never kind of raised her in that thing, sometimes I have dialogues with her where I'll ask her questions and I'll look for kind of like logical, like, there is no logical structure at all in a child.
Mm,
None.
mm,
Like,
mm.
they just
It
don't
just,
have it. Like, they can repeat what you say. And so it looks like they have a logical structure. It's like,
mm,
dinosaurs came at this time, and then this,
mm-hmm,
it's just like,
mm-hmm,
but if you actually stop and you say, well, what about this? How does that influence that? It's like, there's no,
mm-hmm,
like,
mm-hmm.
that capacity is not there because they're in a different universe. Like, they're in a very magical, very playful, very
Well,
imaginative
you're
world.
getting me to think about I'm thinking about the brainwaves. I talk about the brainwaves in the book about the before age 7, before age 10, we're like in this delta theta, almost like
Right?
hypnotic, sponge-like absorptive,
Yeah.
creative,
Yeah.
hypnotic state. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's this free-flowing creativity connection with the universe, the world. And then here we are adults wanting to kind of like put a
Say it like
frame on
this.
that logic that be this way, behave this way, do this is right, this is wrong. Let them find their own truth. Let them find what's right or wrong. Of course, make sure they're safe, but this is where I think the programming, right, all really begins. And back to the medications and programming, what happens is that we start to say things and interpret the world. In the book, I talk about the model of the world and this whole thing with NLP, neuro linguistic programming, which is the brain language programs that we use to program ourselves and others to believe
Right.
and to have attitudes and to have these thoughts. And you guys, I'm sure a lot of people listening have seen those studies where they'll show a classroom, just pictures
Right.
of, silhouettes of people, and they'll immediately say, this one's lazy, this one's fat, this one's this one's that, and just create like an impression without even having a sense based on some very subtle things in these silhouettes. And so we do that. We change the program
Yeah.
of the child, and the child doesn't have a chance to create. And that's where in teenage years, there's all the battles that typically happen. And the battles happen because the kid's like, I'm not going to follow your program. I have my own. So I'm gonna battle with you because you're trying to make me someone that I'm not. And
Yeah.
that's where I actually see a lot of medications. Most of my patients, I'll be honest, I did a lot of migraine work, were when there were young kids coming in. I wasn't really taking care of the patient. I was taking care of the parent. This was a
Right.
parent that I was
Right.
managing. And I'll
Right.
say that was the truth. And so I'm sorry if anyone, does have kids with pain or kids with headaches. I'm not saying that there isn't a legitimate condition. It's that there's a conflict between the parent and the child. And I think it's incredibly important if you love your child to look at what that conflict is stemming from. Put your hand on your heart and say, how can I serve you? What am I not hearing? What do I need to know from you? What am I not understanding about your pain body showing up?
Yeah.
Why is it showing up? And what can I do to help you? That's what we should be asking, but not saying that we want to start this medication and do this, but start asking the question of what is the message behind the pain?
You know,
Why is my kid going into this state, right?
that's such a beautiful thing in this book also. This is not something that's happening to me. This is something that's happening for me.
The
And
biggest.
that just it's like, okay, your body
Hmm.
is providing you information about what's good for it and what's not, and
Yeah.
can you listen? Um,
Yes. That was
and
the
that
most important thing, I think. I heard that from Michael Beckwith back in the day. He talked about stages of spiritual evolution and how we can move from that victim. This is happening to me. Things are happening to me. I remember people during the pandemic. I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe the pandemic's happening, like as if they were personally being attacked. I said, everyone's going through the pandemic. I don't know if you noticed, we're all going through the pandemic. It's not just us.
this might be broader than just you.
Kind of feel like a lot of people are having that same feeling. Yeah. And it's this sense of like, this is about me. And I mean, I was shocked. But you don't understand how I feel. I know, no, I understand. I understand. You're having quite an experience with this pandemic. And as I'm maybe not having that same experience you are, but let's think about the broader picture of why this is happening for all of us, right? And the moment you change your languaging, I mean, and this is the best thing with kids is when they start to like, they get into this little ego, like, poor me, these are kids, right? They're going to say that. And then, sweetie, so why is this happening? What do you think the message is? Get them to start thinking that way.
Yeah,
If they start thinking like, oh, this girl was so mean to me in class, I don't know why she's so mean to me. Honey, is she mean to everybody? Maybe something's going on with her. Have you maybe asked her why she's so upset? Maybe there's something happening. Why don't you lean in and see if she needs some support? Oh my gosh, like if we could teach our kids to just be a little bit more understanding of things happening for us, not to us, and
yeah,
ourselves as adults to do that too. Right? And a lot of that was part of what I was seeing in the clinic. I was noticing who wasn't getting better, who was staying stressed. Back to why do we stay in state? So
right,
when someone's a pits on angry and pissed off all the time and angry at the world, what is it that you're supposed to learn?
right.
Why are you so angry? Maybe you're missing this lesson that the universe is trying to give you with
Yeah,
these relationships you keep having that are not really working for you. Maybe
right,
you're attracting a partner that isn't, maybe you're attracting a narcissist or somebody that isn't serving you. How do we take care of you so you don't bring those people into your life? And suddenly, it's interesting. The dialogue shifted. That's how I knew that there was this, I called it the three brain model, in the book. It's like that first brain is how we think and how we interpret the world and how we interpret stress. And each of us has a different program
sure.
from generations, from our
Yep,
upbringing, right? From our
yep,
natural state.
yep.
And your interpretation of something is going to be different than mine. If you put 100 people in the room, 100 different interpretations of what's going on in that room. Some people, I heard this recently, if you 100 people at a party, one person at the party may be like me, like, I want to get home. I need to get out of here. I'm tired. Another person's like, this is the best thing ever. Another one's like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to, connect with this one. And so everyone's got a different interpretation, right? And so because every person has a different model of the world and they're interpreting that same environment in a different way. And the second brain is how we feel, the enteric nervous system, right? And the limbic brain is that feeling brain. And the enteric nervous system is the peripheral extension. It's literally the limbic brain kind
Right,
of making its way down to the gut. And the vagus nerve connects the gut and the brain, that
right,
parasympathetic kind of generator. And the rest and relax while we breathe.
right.
Activate the vagus. And then
Yep.
there's more conversation from the gut to the brain than there is from the brain to the gut.
That's such a fun. That's
Yeah.
there's many
Right?
fun things.
Right?
That one was like, wow, that's
Wow. For me too. I was like,
it
what?
makes
I
it
learned that.
in a weird way, it makes so much sense. It's like your body is
Yeah.
being made by what you put in it. Like,
Yes. Yes.
of course that would need a lot of communication.
Of course it would. Of course. And our dhatus, our layers of like muscle and fat and
Yeah,
all made up from nourishment of the ahara, the food that comes in. So there's the microbiome and the food, and then there's that energetic enteric nervous system that is communicating upwards. And so is that brain up here really the control center, or the microbiome and the enteric nervous system, the feeling gut, really the control center of our being? And this was shocking for me because I just didn't know this until much later, is that before we make that first molecule of cortisol, before we process something as stressful, we feel and then we think.
right.
We feel and then we think. And
Right.
so it's a split second feel. When you walk in, you feel a sensation of something, then you think a thought. But it happens so fast, we don't even realize that we have this thought. And what I find over the years is that if we don't allow ourselves to feel, we don't connect with that emotional body, we don't clear, trapped emotions, repressed
Right.
emotions, things that we're
Right.
holding, we have a harder time feeling, and thus we have a harder time thinking. And then that leads to the
Yeah.
physical diseases that we
Yeah.
see.
It's very beautiful and interesting what you share there. Like one of my teachers used to say, reason follows feeling.
That's exactly it.
And
Mhm.
it's kind of like when I first heard it, it was like, wait a minute, what? And then you sort of think about it for a minute, and it's like, whoa, it's actually really, really, really obvious, even in your own personal life. It's like if you have a strong feeling that something is a certain way, you'll build a whole rational support network behind that to prove that your feeling is right.
Absolutely. Right, right,
Here
right.
are the 5,000 reasons.
Yes, why I should be feeling this way. Exactly. We're such like left brain logical human beings that want to create and a story around things. But storytelling is, I think, our biggest problem we have is we tell stories that are so untrue. And
Yeah,
we're constantly telling ourselves these stories of the world and interpreting things. And this is where we get into so much trouble, don't we? Get into so much trouble with that storytelling. And we create stories and we create impressions and we create beliefs and attitudes about things, and we don't know the truth. We don't know that the person's going through. We don't have it. And that's the most important thing to bring down this polarized world that we live in, is to start asking, why? Why are you feeling that way? Why are you having these thoughts? Why are you reacting that way? What can I do to help you feel safe? It
yeah,
comes down to safety. It doesn't it,
definitely.
right?
Definitely. And also, I really loved another pointer in your book, which I felt relates very much to yoga, is so you have everything's neutral, you have a story about it, soften your story. It's like, because you're the one who's writing the story. It's like you're writing the
Exactly.
story. You can write it however you want. And if you can write it however you want, why not write a slightly softer version of it? And in a weird way, I felt like that also relates very much to advanced work with the subtle body, because part of what happens in advanced work with the subtle body is certain intense things happen.
Yeah.
And can you stay soft and relaxed when, you know, very
Mm,
strong things are happening inside? And if you
mm,
can, you'll go deeper into that work. And if you can't, you won't.
mm, mm,
Like, you know, this thing of soften your story or, stay relaxed amidst intensity, it has
mm.
profound implications inside of your yoga practice, actually.
Oh, complete. And I love that because in the Yoga Sutras, this idea of tension, holding tension, energy cannot flow.
Right.
And when we're holding tension and trying to do a yoga pose or holding tension, we're preventing ourselves from really receiving the
Right.
energy and the flow. And I think the same thing with the thought is when you're holding a fixed belief and a strong
Wow. Interesting.
tension,
Yeah.
right? Where does the flow of other thoughts come in?
Right.
I'm so fixed and
Right.
tight on my belief, just as much as I'm fixed and tight in my neck.
Right.
Nothing's gonna move past that. It's impermeable,
No.
right? It's like,
Yeah.
mm-mm. So
Yeah.
it's just this idea of being flexible in our body, flexible in our mind, and allowing freedom of thought and allowing us to make some space for compassion for other people that don't necessarily align with our thinking. Because gosh forbid, maybe we're not 100% correct in our thinking. And maybe I don't know,
Possible.
maybe it's possible. We might not be 100% aligned. And there's so many areas of gray in this world. And I think about that, and how do we become so certain with life when life is so uncertain? How do we
Right.
become so certain when life is so uncertain? Nobody is certain about anything. There's no certainty. The only thing we can be certain about is uncertainty, right?
Yeah. 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 It's interesting what you're sharing there about the kind of tension. And I think in the book also you lay out this beautiful thing about, so a stress comes
Mm.
and you tense in reaction to it. But if you're not careful, that tension stays.
Yes.
And then
And
it's
this is
like
where, yeah,
you're
yeah,
just you're constantly in this, you know,
state. You've
state of
turned into you've
uh,
turned into a you've turned into a reptile. This is what you
right.
said. You've gone into your deep brain. You've moved away
Yeah,
from the prefrontal, beautiful, glorious prefrontal cortex, as we as
yeah,
humans have evolved to have this beautiful prefrontal cortex. And we've moved down into the reptilian centers, and we've literally turned into reptilian beings. Reactive, jumpy, irritable, anxious, depressed. That is the state that none of us as humans should be living in, right? We want to move into this blissful, harmonious prefrontal balanced state. Yet we go there because our negative valence centers, we're looking and perceiving, is there danger? Is there danger? And yes, that center is going to turn on because we want to make sure we're safe and we're
true.
not at threat to being. Yet most of the time we're not at threat. And yet we somehow as humans keep that storytelling going, keep
Right,
that safety, like sense of protection state so highly turned on, we don't even know what it feels like to feel bliss and feel relaxed and drop the shoulders down away from the ears and just breathe.
right,
We're just constantly on alert. And then just think about we turn into these reptilian beings and then try to get some work done in that state. Try to
right.
be creative in that state. Try to, and I'm going to make a decision that is an important decision for myself, for my family, for my work, for,
Right,
well, good luck with that. And that's why the most important thing I think at home and the workplace is to learn how to move from sympathetic dominance to parasympathetic, to
yeah,
go into that subtle body, to get out of that state. It
yeah,
can be done right by every single one of us, as long as we're aware that this is what happens. And sometimes when you're in state for so long, you don't know what it feels like to not be in state. That's all you know.
right,
And it's important to work with people. That's what's so important to go to class or to know, have a mentor like yourself, or to have people that you're surrounding yourself with that can tell you and that can speak honestly with you. I have people that I know that stay in these like safe circles of people that don't speak the truth to each other. And it's kind of fascinating to us because I have a lot of friends that they're in these. I'm not a big group person. I have a lots of friends, all diverse, different kinds of friends. I have my gardening friends and my yoga
right,
friends and my Indian friends and these. And, but I'm in kind of different groups, right? And I don't have like this one set circle. Okay. Though I have friends that have these very clear circles of friends. And there's little deviators from that group where they'll come over and ask me questions and, hey, can you help me understand this, this, and this? And someone from that group will come over and ask me because I am somebody that can see the perspective differently and can give them some wise
right,
advice because and they're coming to me, so I feel comfortable saying this to them. Yeah, this is my, and I feel grateful for it, but I also feel sad for it. Like, why can't you just talk to your circle of friends that I think you're closest to about this? Why are you talking to me about this? I'm a good friend of yours, but I'm not in your little tight circle. And I
right,
think that's part of it is in that safety circle, people don't speak the truth.
right, right.
Oftentimes when it's too protected. And so we want to make sure that we're allowing ourselves to get out of our comfort because within that space of uncertainty. I think that picture of like, was it Neil Walsh that comfort zone is here and magic happens over here? If you kind of hang out down here in that comfort zone, you're never going to get to magic. Never going to get to magic. And you wonder why life is just kind of you're in a rut and you're not feeling better and you're stuck in a condition, a job or a health
Yeah,
condition. It's
yeah,
because magic's over here.
right.
And the whole purpose of this and writing this is to know that the tools are there for every single one of us.
Definitely.
Every single one of us can start. And that's why at the end of each chapter, I have like little teeny things because I know not everyone's ready to come to like a 1 hour yoga class. And I can appreciate that. Though I'd
Sure.
love that to be the world, everyone coming right to your classes and Dickerson's classes. Though I know not everyone will, and eventually we'll work our way towards getting more and more people to join in this mission. Yet for now, know that you could even just do some simple things to move your way into that space and be ready. And then that's really where the magic happens is when we clear that program, we clear that protective personality,
Yeah,
and then we see clearly, and then we feel that bliss, and then we become attractors, don't we? We attract amazing people in our lives, we attract amazing opportunities in our lives, we attract health and abundance, and you're not
absolutely.
even not even trying that hard. It's amazing because
Absolutely.
you're being, right?
It's not even that you're not trying that hard, it's you're completely shocked.
Yes.
It's just like, "Whoa, that's happening to me?" Like
It's shocking. It is like I'll tell you when I was asked to do some national media work and do some. I said, why are they asking me? What? How did I'm sitting in my little office and this national media? They're calling me and I'm thinking, it was because I was resonating and vibrating at a level that was aligned with the real me. That's all that was, and I was speaking my truth, setting my boundaries, being around people that supported me. Just A lot of this is doable for everybody. This is coming from someone we were kicked out of Africa. We had no money when we came to the US, literally lived in an apartment with cockroaches, like had nothing, came from nothing. And if I can say that and get to the level of education and where I have, anyone can do this. Anyone can do this. It's just these tools can be somewhat seem esoteric and like hard to use, but they're really practical. They're actually really practical, you
They're really
know?
practical. And,
Yeah.
back to kind of our previous thing, it's like, I loved your sharing. I don't think radiant health is possible if you believe your body's a machine and it only responds to machine influence. It's
Right.
like, because you're ignoring the vast majority of who and what you are. Like,
Right.
if you ignore the vast majority of who and what you are, and you expect your body and your mind and your spirit to function perfectly, that's a very unrealistic expectation.
It is very unrealistic. Yes, and so it's so hard, I believe, for a lot of people to realize this energetic, intangible,
Right,
subtle body,
right.
because we want to see it and feel it and
Yeah,
touch it, and
yeah,
it's that influence of that energy that is truly the driving force, as you said earlier. It's really the most important force, and that's the piece that's missing in the doctor's office, and that's why we feel stressed, is because the doctor, and this is Louis Pasteur and the theory of like get rid of the bacteria, don't think of the
right.
holistic, don't think of the environment. And Louis Pasteur on his deathbed did admit that he did something wrong there. He overpushed the germ theory. Yeah, it was admitted at the end and close to his deathbed. And I have to say, I think when you live life, you start realizing it's not about just attack that one victim or attack that one pathogen or
Right,
attack. It's
right,
this understanding or fix that one part of me, that right elbow needs to be fixed or this needs to be
right.
it's what's with the system
Yeah,
that's out of alignment. And
yeah,
it's what we're missing is the emotional, energetic aspect of our being. And
yeah.
if we can bring that into the physician's office and we can bring that into our mats, into our practice of yoga, and even yoga, I'm sure you and I can both agree 100% on this, that yoga has shifted over to a Western way where you
Mhm.
go in there and it's like a boot camp class. And I went to a sculpt class where they're lifting weights and I walked right out. I said, "What kind of class is this?" And she promised me, "No, no, no, this will be a flow and this will be relaxed." And I said, Why do we have weights then? Are we using our body weight? And why is this room so hot? So these artificial environments, right? I was like, what is going
Can
on?
we
It's like,
add some stress to the situation?
right? Thank you. And how am I going to feel? Am I going to feel connected or am I going to feel like a reptile? I'll walk out of that class and feel like I want to punch someone. I'll be like a reptile. And I'm sure others have felt that where you go into a class and you get all like pumped up and you feel angry. That is not your state that you want to reach after yoga.
Right,
Oh my God, the most beautiful thing of finishing class is to feel that sense of nirvana and peace and connection with bliss. It's like, that's what we want. That's what we want to capture every moment of the day.
yeah,
And so it's unfortunate that, things are shifting, though we've, swayed a little bit over here with the pendulum in terms of how we've taught. And that's why I was, really wanted to, train with you and train with the Akasha team and train with all of you because the truth of the matter is that the authentic practice of yoga was really there to clear trauma, to clear
totally,
generational
totally.
holding of patterns of stress that have passed down we carry in our physical and emotional bodies.
Yeah,
And that's what yoga is really all about.
yeah.
It's the best trauma therapy ever.
It's the best trauma therapy ever. And what's hard about it for people is exactly what you said. It's like, first of all, you're trying to teach them to work with something invisible,
Yeah.
which is a hard sell. And second
Yeah.
of all, it's a seasonal shift.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't just provide
Right.
this super instant gratification. It's like, no,
Right.
it's regular practice over a long period of time. And suddenly the altitude changes and you look around and your whole life is different. But that's
Yeah.
not like five
Immediate.
seconds. It's like sustained
Yeah.
practice over long periods of time. And then suddenly the results are just, well, you like,
Wow.
yeah, you just, there's no question mark. It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
life changed, like
Yeah.
for the better.
Yeah. And it's a challenging practice. Let's just,
Yeah.
be honest when you're actually practicing the asanas. And if you haven't practiced the asanas, starting to practice them, it's a vulnerable experience to say, wow, I don't know if I can do these poses. And
Yeah.
it's humbling. And yet the beauty, as you said, is the more you practice it, the more you feel, wow, the body is opening. I'm starting to release. And back to the thinking patterns and the physical body and that flexibility of mind and flexibility of body, it takes time. It takes time, though, the more you spend opening up the mind, opening up the body, you enter this state where you almost can't go a day without it, right? Can't go,
Right.
like, ah, I just, wow, if I don't practice just a little bit each day, because life is such that I'm going to get pulled. That's just the
Yeah,
reality of living.
of
I
course.
mean, I told you we just moved houses. I'm definitely getting pulled. And there's absolutely things that are happening in the world right now where we get pulled. We're human beings. We're experiencing this human existence and it's tough. So we're
Yeah,
getting pulled. That is just a human experience to acknowledge, and these tools like yoga will bring us back and bring
yeah,
us back and bring us back so we don't get so thrown off that over the course of time we lose that connection with self. And that's where
right,
stress becomes so imbalanced and disease becomes so imbalanced that even the pharmaceutical medications, which I'm okay with the use of them, they become unfortunately toxic on the system. They don't
yeah,
work. It creates side effects.
definitely.
Patients say, "How come, I was on that and like Ozempic, I'm hearing this left and right. I was losing weight and now I'm not anymore, or I'm getting digestive side effects, or I'm getting these strange headaches, or I'm getting," and
Right,
I'm not surprised. The body's not meant to be taking a GLP agonist every day, every moment of the day. The gut makes this. The gut is supposed to regulate your appetite. And so when we start to use tools in a way, I get, if you're morbidly obese and you're at high risk of a heart attack or stroke, that's a different conversation. But for a lot of individuals, these meds should be used as a bridge
right.
to get us to the place of practicing these different techniques. And hopefully the book gives some perspective on what that other piece is that's kind of missing at the doctor's office. Because I think a lot of these things, when you understand that, you'll want to practice yoga. You'll want to do these different techniques of understanding your thought patterns, working on your emotions, clearing trauma. And every single one of us has some kind of trauma. There isn't a single person, I believe, that it doesn't have any. There's smaller T's, we call them the big T, right? Big traumas. And the reality is everyone's got some, you know? And I think that's what kind of keeps us stuck, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And, I feel like joy and being present with yourself, it's a highly motivating. Like when you touch into it, it's like there is no other greater motivator than that. It's like,
Who
okay,
doesn't want that?
and not just for myself, for my children, for the world, for everything. It's like, let's bring health back into fashion, so to speak, in
Back
its
into
in its
fashion.
full uh, expression.
Yes, expression.
Um, the In the United States, 70% of all human beings medicated. And Sadhguru said about that, when you have a condition where 70% of the people are medicated, the next
Mm.
generation will not be as fortunate as the previous one.
Oh,
Whoa, that's a very, very, very
whoa.
strong. Like
Oh,
that's what every American wants for their children. Like every American wants for their child that their child's life is better than theirs. Like
every American. And now
we're
the longevity rates too, right? We know that now this is the first time in history where if we don't change the way things are, we will live longer lives than our kids. And that
right.
is so sad and humbling.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it reminds us to keep radiant health, radiant art, radiant community. Um, and
Inspire each other.
I loved also a little passage from your book. You were like, the bliss body. You can achieve it. It seems impossible. It's not impossible.
Everyone,
And
everyone's got it. Everyone has access.
exactly, it's part of your anatomy. It's kind of like an arm. It's like you've got it. Like
Why don't you use it?
you just have to use it.
Don't ignore it. Put it to, and it's so funny. It's so, to me, I think, funny because it seems to be so challenging to get there and to
Right,
find that. Yet, quite frankly, the universe has provided us with what we need: beautiful food, beautiful nature, this environment that we live in. just connecting with it, taking some time to put your feet on the grass in the morning,
Yeah.
if the temperature is comfortable, and just ground. Listen to the birds chirping, right? Just smell some of the flowers that are there.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a lot to just the sensory, let's fine tune the senses to things that our nature has provided with us or for us versus watching too much TV or spending way too much time on our phones,
Yeah.
finding how the sensory body can respond to the environment, and then naturally the nervous system goes into a state of bliss.
Right.
I mean, to me, I just planted a garden and my goodness, I'm so happy the vegetables are growing so beautifully. And it makes me so happy because it's my first garden. And I have to say, anyone can do it. Anyone can do it. And I have lemongrass and I have kale and just watching the garden grow for as simple, I've heard this before, but really when you do it, plant a little tomato plant and watch it grow and see those little tomatoes happen. And you're like, wow, this is like life, a vegetable that I just put water in and I'm giving it nice organic soil and look at what happened. And that is so simple. Yet if we practice doing things like that, we start to feel that sense of connection with nature and we start to feel happier. And I don't really, I mean, people are texting me. I don't even want to look at my phone. I was like, oh, I was in the garden. And so
I've got important tomato work.
very important tomato, some attention for the tomatoes. And I tell you, it's amazing how it transports you, doesn't it? Right. And so we don't have to start with fancy. In fact, the universe has provided us with the tools.
Yeah.
And it's for us to just get a little curious, maybe start a garden, maybe get out there, put your feet on the grass, get out there and just connect with other people. There's also a study looking at, oh gosh, there's a terminology about this. And it's a very simple concept of this conversation you're having with others that is a very light conversation that isn't necessarily deep. So if I'm standing in line at the grocery store and I just chat with the person in front of me, oh, you decided to buy blueberries today. Oh, what are you going to do with the blueberries? You're going to have them fresh, or oh, you're at the toll booth and you're giving someone some money. How is your day going? These little short conversations you have with people, be as short and simple and superficial as they are, have a massive impact on your emotional well-being and their emotional well-being, and putting a smile out there. And there's an amygdala experience where I actually have my coaching clients do, right? Where I was like, you know what? Instead of kind of having, a grumpy face, smile. And when
Yeah.
you walk around, smile and notice what you feel. You'll start to notice people come smile back at you because what happens is our amygdala,
Yeah.
on each side of the brain, they're storing that fear and that memory. They're picking up the subconscious perception and feeling of another person. And before we can actually feel the feeling of someone, what they're feeling, the amygdala perceive that. And if we're smiling and they're smiling, and if they come to us with a smile, shoulders dropped, the happy face, we're going to immediately respond to them in that similar way. And then we feel happier. So all these little simple tricks, right, to get into that bliss body.
Yeah.
And it's there for us. Like you said, it's like our arm, just use it. Go there, tap in,
Just use
you
it.
know?
Oh,
Yeah.
so beautiful, so beautiful. I'm so grateful.
Thank you.
I really just want to really fully recommend to everybody your amazing book
Yeah.
because the synthesis of the East and West and the wisdom of yoga and Ayurveda and certain beautiful, it's like you can pick up a diamond and you can look at it and it all has different facets. And I felt like in your book, there are particular facets of the kind of great tradition of yoga expressed through the lens of Ayurveda, which are
Mhm.
very, very, very insightful for practitioners and very beautiful. So, you know,
Thank you.
it's not just something that you should read if if you feel stressed or you feel like you want to understand. It's something that can really assist you in your journey and in your practice. So,
Thank you for the beautiful words. Thank you for having me. I hope this helped others know that this ancient wisdom is there for all of us to help us. And even though disease rates are going up, and we gave those numbers in the beginning of the healthcare system, I really do believe things are changing, and I believe we're all ready for it. And I believe that if we come together and support each other on this mission, we can truly change, right? The trajectory of where things are going and transform it,
yeah,
and
beautiful.
support each other. Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much.
Namaste, everybody.
Yeah.
Love you much.